Welcome to Conversation with Buddy. I'm your host, Buddy Puckett. Well, we are deep into fall. It's currently raining right now. It's November 1st. By the time this podcast airs, it's going to be a couple weeks down the road. So at this point in time, we're about 4.5 days away from Election Day. And, by the time this airs, we'll have a new president. So anyway, should be exciting times. We'll probably talk a little bit about, what's going on in the election. But really, this is not a political podcast. It's a podcast to share Christ. And that's what we plan to do today. So today I'm going to introduce my guest. His name is Rick Herrmann. Welcome, Rick.
Hi, welcome.
Well, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks.
Well, I was thinking, a couple weeks ago, you and I randomly met for coffee. I would say randomly because we really didn't know each other. We're neighbors a little bit. And it's funny how God works because I love to meet people. So I'm glad you actually reached out to me. And it was cool. We had a really great conversation.
Yeah. And we've seen each other several times because we meet at Starbucks.
At Starbucks,
we both have a group that we meet with.
I couldn't remember your name, though, honestly. It's because, I hadn't ever got to know you. But I know Mike Murphy, who obviously knows you and hangs out with you. But no, what a privilege, man. When you and I met, a couple of things that really struck me was you're really transparent. And I love that about guys when they're like, hey, here's all of it. That's the thing I want most. I want to share my life and be really vulnerable because that's really the only way we can impact men. And so I really appreciate that about you. The thing, we talked a lot about, Jiu Jitsu and, cryptocurrency. But I think the thing that I took away from you is you left a career and you had to work through some stuff. And the thing I'm talking about is our identity. And so I'm going to read a Bible verse real quick, and then we're going to talk about this thing called identity and really figure out what's our identity in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
All right. This is 1 John 1:7. It's the verse of the day, by the way. If you've never been on the Bible app before, you should consider it. So it says, "But if we walk in the light, as he himself is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sin." And so guess what? We're going to talk about Jesus today.
Okay.
So, the identity thing, I'm just going to talk briefly about it, but I'm going to make us go back to the very beginning of who Rick is. But what we want to unpack today is you had a career and then you decided God was calling you to leave that career. I think that's what you said.
Yes.
And the identity crisis that us guys have, because we find oftentimes our identity in what we do and not who we are. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's very true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Even though we know better, if we're honest with ourselves, we get...
being honest with yourself. I think I walked around for years thinking, I'm my identity is in Christ. I might say that, but I think my attitude or my actions would show something different. And those were in conflict with each other. And it took a long time to figure that out. And so, but we're going to unpack that because I think guys need to hear about your story.
Okay.
So, Rick, let's take, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to jump into it?
No, I want to take you back. So take us back to the very beginning. Where'd you grow up? What were your parents like? And how did that form you to be who you are today? That's really what's important to me to hear.
Okay. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I grew up, religion-wise, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
That was my mom's side of the family. My dad was Lutheran, but he didn't attend church. Let's see. There was a point, I'll get right to it. There was a point, I think I was about 11 years old, somewhere around there, where I believe I have accepted Christ because I was told, if you trust in Christ and you're baptized, you're going to be saved. And that could have been the time, but as I tell the story, you'll understand, because I believe God hears those prayers. Because there was another time later in life when I was in the Navy, about 19 years old, when I made a decision to follow Christ. And I feel like I more understood what that was, but it could have been then too. So not sure, but not doesn't really matter. But yeah, that was, my parents got divorced. I lived separately. I floundered in school for a while and managed to pull it together to graduate high school. Joined the Navy, which was a really good idea. All I wanted to do is, I wasn't thinking about the career or the education.
Yeah.
I was thinking about getting away from my family.
Okay.
It's like, I need to be on my own. It was time, and I needed to separate. And it was a good experience. It was a really good experience being with people from all races, cultures, states, and being part of a mission that was bigger than me.
Yeah, yeah.
It was kind of a neat experience. And I made some trouble and didn't do so well there, but, it was in the Navy I became a Christian. I got to tell you about this guy who witnessed to me. He was a fundamental Baptist.
Okay.
A lot of fun. And I don't think I've met a lot of Christians in my life up to this point, but this guy was fun. And he was on fire.
You can have fun being a Christian?
Yeah. And this
What's
was
up with that?
And he was this awesome piano player and just a lot of fun and just normal. And he's excited about Jesus.
Yeah.
And he would talk to me about it, and I'd say, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, sure. And but he told me one day, he's like, "But is Jesus your Lord?" And I'm like, I never really thought. No one's ever asked me that. I never really thought about it.
Jesus your Lord? Okay.
Like, yeah, is he your Lord? And that's back at the time, it was this. I think John MacArthur wrote a book about lordship salvation,
Yes.
and so. I didn't know what was going on in the theological world, but that was kind of the question, is he your Lord? And I thought about that. And at the time I was living with a gal, and some other stuff that wasn't right. And I was struggling with that. It's like, well, if he's my Lord, that obviously I'm not submitting to him. And it was the Holy Spirit now looking back that was just dealing with me. It's like, you're not following me, but I want you to follow me. And so I would say it went on for a few months. And finally, I don't know exactly when it was, but I said, Lord, I want to follow you. I know this isn't right. And it was just before I went on my last cruise on an aircraft carrier. And so while I was out on the cruise, actually, this was kind of funny. This is getting vulnerable, I guess. But
that's good.
So my girlfriend, I became a Christian. I chose to follow Christ. And, I told her, I don't feel right about having sex anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And she she's thinking, what's wrong? Who is it? What's going on with somebody else? And I'm like, no, I just don't feel this is right. Yeah. I want to follow God and I don't feel it's right. So anyway, I went on the cruise. Anyway, we were sending letters to each other, this girl. I just leaving her name out just for, and a couple months and then the letter stopped, which was very strange. And then a couple months later, this was a 6 months cruise, and I got a letter saying, I met someone. So she was with somebody else. So the ties were cut. But it was like God took me out of that in an interesting way. But yeah, so that's.
Seems like he does that. When we pray and we submit, he's going to help remove us because on our own, we probably don't have the strength to do that.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
I would say, yeah, that was God saving me from that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, take us back a little bit, though. So your mom and dad got divorced. How old were you at that point in time?
I was just getting into middle school, so that would have been about, what's middle school now, about?
6th, 7th, and 8th, maybe?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Probably, 12 to 14-ish,
that
give or
sounds
take?
about right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that impact you, especially as you go with your young man? Did you live with mom? Did you live with dad?
Actually, it was be in my 8th grade, so it was just before high school now.
Okay.
I remember it. Yeah, so I lived with my mom for a while, and this was in Upper Wisconsin. And she's a sweet lady, very loving, but wasn't really big on, keep me accountable, discipline. My dad was just the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, no, this is what you will do, So I was up in northern Wisconsin, Ashland, if anybody knows where that is. And struggled. I actually went to a Seventh-day Adventist Academy backing up when I was a freshman. I got kicked out for vandalism. So I was a troubled kid. Then I went to live with my mom. And then I think she had enough of me to get in trouble. And she sent me my dad. They were divorced, but she recognized that this was a good place to send me.
Yes.
So she sent me there, and I had to do every credit for 2 years to graduate. And
In
I
high
did.
school?
And I did
Okay.
just to finish on time
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I had slacked off for the first 2 years. But that discipline was what I needed, and and I appreciated it, and I needed it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, Tim Davis, I think you met Tim. Tim and I and another guy, Finn, we created a thing called Valor Mentoring probably a decade ago or so. And really it's talking about fatherless homes and the challenge with fatherless homes that a big percentage of young men in prisons today, 90%, as a matter of fact, roughly, is they're in a fatherless home. So the power, your mom and dad may have been divorced, but your dad had a major impact in your life. You recognize that.
Yeah.
And your mom recognized that dad needs to be in your life, and he brings the heavy hand.
Yeah.
So, well, how did that, okay, so you go to high school, you're still in Wisconsin, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do sports in high school?
I
Because you seem like an athlete.
was kind of I've always been an introvert.
Okay.
And so group sports, I wasn't into. I did some karate, so I had a group there.
Yeah.
But I didn't do like basketball or football or anything like that.
Okay,
I wasn't part of that crowd. So.
Yeah. Did you, so in high school, you started some karate, and what'd that look like? Because I know we're going to get into that a little bit. You have a place that you have right now called Grace Jiu Jitsu.
Yes.
So you must love karate and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it started in high school, and then on and off I've stopped and started, over the years. And so there's been periods of not doing it, but generally I just this is what I love.
Yeah.
It's individual. It's also a relationship with other people too,
Sure.
as you're rolling and fighting, getting sweaty together.
Yeah.
But really, really like the discipline. The ability. It gave me more confidence because I was kind of a would you say, a nerd or a punk or whatever.
Okay,
And I drew negative attention, and
Right.
bullies tend to pick on the weak people, and so that did give me a little sense of confidence, and just all of a sudden it goes away.
Yeah.
If you're just confident, even though nothing happens, if you're just confident, you know that, okay, I could probably handle myself.
Yeah.
Even if you can't, if you think that,
Right.
you exude a confidence, and then
Right.
bullies leave you alone.
Isn't that funny?
So,
Isn't that
yeah.
interesting? Yeah.
So
That's cool. After your high school, where'd you go to college at?
I went to the Navy immediately
Oh, that's
after.
right. You went Navy.
So I got my training in aviation electronics.
Yeah.
I did some college after the Navy. I actually never got a formal degree. So
But you became an engineer.
I did.
That's really interesting.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about, life after the Navy. When did you meet your wife? Because you've been married for how long?
34 years.
34 years.
Yeah.
How many kids you got?
3.
Ages.
So 31 is my oldest son, 28 and 25.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So when did you meet your wife? And let's unpack that journey a little bit.
I met her while I was in the Navy.
Okay.
I was stationed at Whidbey Island,
Okay.
which is neat. When I was in training in Tennessee,
Yeah.
they asked me where I wanted to go, and I wanted to go somewhere tropical. So I said Corpus Christi, Texas, because it was as far south and tropical as you could get. I ended up in Whidbey Island, Washington.
Yeah, which is not
And-
tropical. It's raining.
which has been great. And that's where I met my wife. So it all works out. I met her father was in the Navy. Her dad was a Marine. So she was a military family. And we met, sounds more romantic than it is, but we met in a strawberry patch. She ran out of gas, and we were stopping in, and we just kind of hit it off and became friends. Spent several months together just as friends.
Yeah.
And it was at a point in my life where I was like, I don't want to see women as just sexual objects.
Yeah.
And that sounds really like shallow. I mean, but that was part of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to quickly fall into relationships. So I was like, I want to just have friends that are women, friends that are men. I wanted to help. And she was a friend to me.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of stuff together, and we did it with groups. And so that's how we met. And through that, other people started seeing, hey, what's with you two? Something's going on. And I'm like, no, that's my friend. It just felt wrong to think anything different.
Yeah. That's funny.
Then we were both feeling the same way. And,
Are you around 22 years old at this point in the game?
22, 23.
22, 23.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is she about the same age as you are?
She's a year and a half older than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So you guys were friends, and then what?
Yeah, we it was kind of obvious to everybody else, and it was kind of obvious to us that we liked each other. And before one of my we call them detachments, they were short training things going out to sea. We had a long talk, and I don't remember the exact words, but it's like let's date, let's do this. And so that was kind of neat. Yeah.
That was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
It was about a year.
Okay.
And another thing that was really cool is I would fall into sexual relationships fairly easy.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was spending a lot of that year out to sea was a really good thing for us, because we sent the old VHS videos. This was old school. Yeah. Back and forth. We'd do videos and letters, and letters were like a 3-week turnaround. Yeah. But we spent a lot of time talking, getting to know each other, like not being present, which was pretty cool. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Well, it forces you to communicate. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, typically guys don't communicate well. Yeah. I won't blame the women, because I'm not a girl. Yeah. But guys don't communicate well. And if we can learn how to communicate, and I like that God had a plan, apparently. Mm-hmm. And so teaching you, women aren't just sexual objects. They are, we're supposed to find one and marry one, right? So, all right.
And I again, that sounds shallow, and I think it was, but I mean, that wasn't the only thing, about sex. But, the guys are all talking about it. It's like the peer pressure. It's like, look at her, and that seems to be the first thing we think about a lot. Yeah. And we are visually stimulated, so I get that. But, I just wanted to go deeper and see women for the whole package.
Was she a believer when you met her?
She was a believer, and she would say she was backslidden. She fell away, and she was in a place of partying, but that's her story, so I won't. Yeah. Right.
No, I've been a prodigal son as well. I mean, everybody's got their story, so we'll let people share their own story. But yeah, today it's you. Well, let's talk about life. You guys eventually had kids, and then I want to know how you got into the career of an engineer. And I know typical engineers are pretty introverted, and how did you get into it? How long did you do it? And then we're going to talk about that transitional piece. That's the important piece.
Okay. Well, I did engineering in the Navy. That was kind of my start. I've always been very technical. I mean, if you go way back to when I was a kid, I was inventing things, designing things. I had a box of motors and wires and stuff. That's just my aptitude. That's what I was into forever. Right. So working on aircraft in electronics was a great fit. When I got out of the Navy, I needed a job, and our neighbor worked on office equipment. He was a manager at office equipment company. So I worked on office equipment, copiers, and then color copiers, and so I did that. Then we were in Wisconsin at the time. We moved here to Portland, actually Tualatin. And I got a job out here doing office equipment repair. And so I did that for about 2 years. And then I had a recruiter call me just randomly, a headhunter. Yeah. And say,
and this was in your 20s.
This would be, more late.
So maybe
probably 27, something like that.
So roughly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, probably it's closer to 30. Okay. Somewhere at 28, 29, something like that.
Okay. So you had a few years in the...
Yeah. Okay. And then, and this was exciting because, my wife and I are both Christians, and he says this is an Israeli company, a high-tech company. Yeah. And they work in the electronic manufacturing, and we'll fly you for an interview, you don't have to pay. I was like, okay, let's do this. And I went down for an interview, and, I think that was my first real interview,
No kidding, yeah.
And I think I did okay, but what they really liked, they said they didn't feel like it was very strong technically. I think I am, but I didn't interview well. But they said what really hit us is, your love for your family and your commitment to people and your personal, and this is a tech company. Right. But they said, we really like that you're really family oriented. And later I found out why, because you're traveling all the time, and they want to make sure that you're solid and you're, So, but so I started working with them, and 24 years I worked with them.
No kidding.
Yeah. And started as a technician and moved up. I moved into a couple management roles, and I never looked for them.
Right.
I just wanted to be good at what I did. I'm kind of old school, but they would ask me to do them. And I was surprised a few times with some big roles. But yeah, I left as an engineering manager. I was in charge of like 6 experts, like here and in Europe.
No kidding.
Really intimidating.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
they're really smart people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool. Well, then I started seeing you at Starbucks. So we're going to unpack this a little bit. You moved from McMinnville to Salem, a couple years ago, 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And then I started seeing you at Starbucks, meeting with, Mike Murphy, and I really didn't know the relationship. And then, so unpack that a little bit, because you and I met for coffee a couple weeks ago, and I got to hear more of the real story. You transitioned out of that job. I want to know why you did that, and what was the challenges of letting go of an old career identity. Let's unpack that a little bit.
I'll have to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that the weave? Kind of like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love my career, and even to the point I left, I loved it. I love engineering, really satisfying. I like solving problems. And engineering was a lot of solving problems. It's very satisfying. My wife and I had a hard time halfway through our marriage. I'd say about 10 years in. Actually, maybe it was about 15 years in. And, there was a point I wanted to quit back then, but this was my stability. This was like, this is our income, this is our home, this is everything. And I feel like I should stay there for that, even though things seem to be falling apart, our family needed that. We have kids in school. And so, but always, even past that, some of my travel was up to 80% of the time. It was always being gone. Now the company's really good to the family. They took us on outings. They were really good, but it was a lot of travel. And I didn't feel I was present.
Yeah.
I tried to be, when I was home, I tried to be as present as possible, but I just wasn't home all the time. And anyway, back to your question. It was just bugging me that I was always away. And, I had a grandson coming. Actually, I didn't know that at the time, but I just wanted to be more present at home. And as I meditated and pressed into God and say, what do you want from me? I just kept feeling that, I know it was Holy Spirit. This isn't where I want you. And I know it was for those 24 years, but it's like, I don't want you here anymore. And I'm not one to quick, like Abraham, get up in the morning and obey God. I'm not that way.
I wish we could say that, right?
But I just kept pressing into it. And it's like, no, I think I need to be home, because I couldn't, there's things I want to do in church, things I want to do with my kids, relationships, ministry, all these things. It's like my job was in the way. And so it wasn't immediately, but, things kind of came together. My wife, we were up in McMinnville. My wife was working down here in Salem, so she was commuting every day. The market was good for a house, and so we had opportunity. Anyway, what we did is we sold our house in McMinnville. We ended up with some money out of that. We moved to Salem. I was shortly after able to quit my job, so we kind of had a plan. It's like, couldn't just quit cold turkey,
right?
Because I got to plan everything. It's the engineering thing. That's
I hear
that's kind of who I am. So,
yeah.
But and we did it, and after I had given my notice, this was neat. They said, "Would you like to contract with us?" And so for about a year, a little bit longer, they're like, it was a perfect situation.
Yeah.
It's like they would ask me, "Do you want to work next week?" And I would say yes or no. It was totally up to me. And we had a really good relationship. They paid me, 1099 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
1099, self-employed.
And so that was working great. And I'm like, heck, this is a good bonus. I get what I want. I get to choose how often I travel. I get to do what I love. But then they were bought by a big company, and they said no longer any contracting. So that's done. So that was the end of that. And then I started, then there was a journey of like, okay, now what do I do? My thought was I'm going to be buying and selling real estate and be a millionaire and whatever like that. So, but it set in pretty quickly that I had to get a job somewhere.
Yeah.
So, my daughter encouraged me to apply with the school district as a sub teacher. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Sounds fun. And so I went through the stuff there. And so I'm still a sub teacher. I haven't done it yet this year, but that was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
And then I also started working at a cafe downtown here in Salem.
Yeah.
So those two things. And it was neat because God used that to take me from being really separated as an engineer, being away, to being right in the center of our culture, right with kids, different grades, right in the center of Salem, and the capital of one of the most liberal states. And so it was a neat thing for him to put me right in that culture.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Had you felt God's calling during, I mean, it sounds like you maybe had, and maybe you didn't recognize God calling you, hey, Rick, I need you to be home. And maybe you weren't ready yet. Maybe you weren't hearing the voice right. Or was God calling you, or was it just maybe at the perfect time God just said, okay, Rick, it's time for you to be done traveling. You need to be home.
He could have been if he was. Maybe I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember a period where I like fell away from God since we've been married.
Yeah.
I've always been praying, and I if he was telling me that, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, there was times when I thought I need to quit, but it was like, it didn't make sense because I didn't have an alternative, we had bills to pay, we had young kids, they were in private school for a while. It's like, it doesn't make sense because it was nice income and decent benefits and a family company, even though I was gone a lot. So I thought that maybe I shouldn't be here, but never really. Maybe it could have been sooner. I'm not sure. I'm trusting God's timing on that.
Yeah.
He knows how to lead me if I'm stubborn.
Are you stubborn?
I think I am, or big-headed, or
your
whatever.
Wife might say, yeah.
So, but he knows how to lead me, and I eventually I left and stuff.
What was the challenges of two things? Number one, now you're going to be home full time, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a time of transition and challenge? Because now it's just different because you're an introvert and now you're home full time.
Mm-hmm.
Was that difficult? And then letting go the identity piece. Did you ever find that your identity was in what you were doing a little more than you thought? And how did you reconcile that?
Yeah. I know when I started having to, the first few months after I lost the contracting, we still had some money coming in. I started like pulling out of some savings and some investments I had. And then it started to set in like, I don't have this income anymore. I'm no longer an engineer. What do I do? I decided, to be a home inspector, and we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
But I knew that was a path, and that actually developed, I needed a job first. It's like, I need to bring him some money. Because Kim was, bless her heart, she was carrying the bulk of the bills and stuff. So yeah, it was a little bit difficult. As a man, you want to feel like, and naturally I want to provide, I don't want, I want my wife not have to worry and stress about that. I don't think our wife should have to stress about those things, I think that's our role. I mean, my wife works, she's a professional, she's good at what she does.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want her to feel like she's stuck having to do that because of me.
The sole breadwinner.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a little bit difficult. I had to keep praying. It's like, I believe this is the right path. And I know enough about how God used people in the Bible that the path was, really rocky. He'd give you one piece and then it would unfold. And so I knew the journey was kind of like a desert. And so this is part of it. And it's like, I'm thankful for this opportunity to grow and learn.
Yeah.
So I've always had that peace and faith that I'm going the right direction, so I never doubted that. But yeah, it's a little bit like, who am I? What am I doing? There was some of that too.
Right.
And I imagine people who aren't Christians or don't have a relationship with God would really, really struggle with that.
Absolutely.
Really, really.
Yeah.
Because I was thankful that I could, just go to God every day and say, hey, am I on the right path? Give me some assurance here. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And then I get that assurance.
And did you notice your faith grew during that period of time?
Yeah, definitely.
Even though you did have faith,
mm-hmm.
but it was a test where now you actually have to trust in God. Like,
yes,
Rick, you're going to let go of the old identity of who you thought you were and that security. Because really, does life give us security? It doesn't.
No.
Only Jesus gives us security. and letting go of what you, as an engineer, I can only imagine, you need it planned out. You need to know exactly how it works. And that's all taken away from you.
Yeah.
And,
the funny thing, this is God is comical, and I love this because
he is. He's got a sense of humor.
In the engineering industry, I could kind of have some kind of influence on making things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to joke, engineers make dreams come true. Other people dream. They're like, oh, this would be a good idea. And then they say, engineer, get it done. So, so I started working in the school district, and nothing is predictable and nothing is in control. And doing middle school PE is just crazy.
That's hilarious.
Middle schoolers mess with you too. They just poke you and push you, and they don't know. They're struggling with identity, and you're a sub, and they want to see what you're made of, and
So they're testing you.
Yeah, they're testing you. So, and then there's elementary, and then the chaos there, and then high school is actually easy.
Really?
They're just kind of mellow, and you just got to try
So
to
middle schoolers, the grade schoolers in first through fifth, they're great. They're
just energetic.
Middle
school is like it's a tough group, and I remember it too. It's a tough time for them. Yeah. And people are trying to lead them too. It's discouraging. But so it went from engineering stuff I could control to like kind of a controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And then working as a server downtown, serving tables, totally different from my brain.
Yeah.
Multitasking, getting requests from all different directions, and trying to connect with people, and still move and So I really like how God's just like expanded my capacity in my brain. So,
well, the joy, I can see the joy in your face. I mean, being put in a position where you didn't know, even 4 years ago that you're gonna be waiting tables during a transitional period.
Yeah.
But I like the humility that I actually like that as a guy. Guys need to work. We need to provide for our families. And so I love that you were willing to do whatever it took. And I will salute you for that, because that is humility, and God loves humility. So, well, okay. So let's talk about this here. So when you and I met, it's cool. I didn't know you, but I got to know you really well that day. I feel like you gave me 3 cards. Number one, your Grace Jiu Jitsu card, which is like Hoist Gracie, and also the grace. Is that the grace of Jesus?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
So is it a play on words a little bit?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So you're local, and you guys do Tuesdays and Thursdays Jiu Jitsu.
We do.
I love that. Okay. So if you want to learn how to do Jiu Jitsu, this is a place to go. Number one. I love this here card. You gave me your business card, and I've had it in my truck for a few weeks. I didn't really pay too much attention till the other day, because you and I are going to be on the podcast. On the back side here, you're a property and retirement. You like property and retirement solutions. You're a nutrition and fitness coach. You're high tech, high tech consultant, adventure vans. I mean, there's conversations on all this, by the way. Do you play the saxophone?
I do.
Okay. Scripture memory. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Ooh, wow, that's a tough one. I have a lot of them.
Or give me one.
I like the first chapter of John.
Okay, give me part of that.
Yeah. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. I think I'm going on to the second part of the chapter.
Yeah. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Yeah. So
that's good.
I have like almost 4 books in my memory, but I got a review, and then they come back.
I know all about that. So. You are a chess enthusiast, a backpacker, and a crypto nerd. I mean, this is exciting, man. I mean, you and I can hang out a lot more, man, because I love this stuff too.
I wanted to have a card that I could give people for having conversations like this. Because I even though I'm an introvert, I really value people. And so I force myself to know people. But one of my coaches up in Seattle, he's like, I think he pitched the idea as like, how do you sum up on a business card or a calling card, what you do? One title, talk about identity. It's like, I do a lot of things. And I want people to know it's like, here's who I am. What do you want to talk about? Maybe somebody connects with crypto, or maybe somebody connects with saxophone or something. So that's kind of why
you're going to connect with somebody somewhere, and I love that. So you have a coach? Is that what you said? Yeah,
it's a real estate coach up in
Who's
Seattle.
Your real estate coach?
His name is Greg Pino.
Oh, that's right. You told me about Greg.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I started following him And maybe one day I'll get to go to one of his events.
Yeah.
And I love that he does them for free.
He does some for free. He has some paid ones, but he does some for free too, just because he enjoys
What a
it.
cool dude.
Yeah.
But then where your transition was, you finally realized you needed maybe more of a career type job. And so talk to me about Lupit's inspection services, because you like real estate. This kind of goes.
Yeah. And one of the things my coach suggested, if you're coming into this industry and you have no experience with homes at all, he says it's a good idea to be in some adjacent field, like an agent or a contractor or a home inspector. And so that was good wisdom, because, just got to jump in somewhere and get some kind of knowledge base, some kind of a common language. And I thought, wow, home inspection. It's kind of like engineering. You study systems. A home is systems. There's a drainage system. There's a plumbing system. There's a HVAC system. They're all systems. I know systems. And people don't think of it like that. And you got to write reports. I did that all the time. Like, this sounds like a lot of fun. I could get into the, home industry, I could use some of the skills I already had. And so I went through the training, and of course I prayed about this. I'm like, yeah, I think this is the thing to do. And I went through the trainings, like 120 hours of training. There was a test, and I did good. But the market, even now, has been slow.
A little bit,
quite a bit slow. And so started throwing my resume out there, trying to contact people, and, nothing. We don't have enough work for ourselves was the answer. I sent a resume to Bruce Thede. He owns Lupit's, and he's a believer, brother. And he kind of tabled it because he, didn't need anybody.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I have a good friend that I meet Tuesday mornings with.
Yeah.
And he says, I know a guy. And it was Bruce.
Oh, no way.
So he went and told him, hey, I got this friend who wants to get in the home inspection.
Around there it was again.
So then he's like, oh, let me pull out this resume. And then, so he called me and he says, I can't hire you, but, and I said, can I join you? Can I get some experience? Yeah. I'd like to learn. And he said, sure. And he invited me. And so for several months, he'd invite me and I'd look through houses with him and get experience. And I think it was a few months later, he said, and we were honest. I'm like, he's like, I'd like to bring you on. There's not going to be a lot of work, but I'd like to bring you on, and, thinking of the future, it's going to take a while. And so that's how it started. Now, just lately I'm starting to get more jobs and getting paid. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. When did you go to work for them?
It was about a year ago.
Yeah. Okay. So 1 year. And I love that typical home inspectors, they just go do their job, but you as an engineer, you see it as systems. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I want the guy or the girl, whoever inspects my home, I want them to know the house better than I do. Mm. I don't want to hire somebody that doesn't know what they must know more than I do. And so I think hiring a guy like you makes sense. Hey, your background is in engineering. Like, you don't just want to go make money and do some inspections. You actually love systems, and you can see it clearly in the way you do your home inspection. I think that's the coolest thing. Yeah. So, all right.
And I enjoy it. Every home is different, and you don't know what you'll see in the crawl spaces.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Oh, I see skeletons and bones in the crawl space
of an animal, like a dead animal. Yeah. Hopefully not a human being, right?
No, some of them are big, but
no kidding. Like a big raccoon, or
could be, or a possum, or cat, or something.
So it sounds like you find joy in doing that.
I do.
So how do you connect with clients? What would be your optimal way of doing that?
So right now it's through Lupit's, through their reputation. They have a lot of people, and they're sending me jobs, as because Bruce wants to get out of the business. He's in his 60s, and so as we get more jobs, they're giving them to me. I also have a couple agents that I've connected with, and I've gotten 2 jobs from other agents.
Sweet.
And I probably got to go out and actually meet and greet and say, hey, here's what I do.
You might have to get out of your comfort zone and really go all in on that.
Yeah. And one of the things we want to do is like expand more up into McMinnville, Yamhill County, and that. So I need to go up there and introduce myself. So
cool. You it's like you know what to do, and now you just got to go do the work. And I think actually, you might be introverted, but I can see you actually enjoy people. Mm-hmm. So have the conversation.
I'm a S personality. I don't know if you ever done the DISC test.
Oh yeah. I know the steady Eddie guy.
So I'm steady, but the S person, what I'm told is even though they're an introvert, or they can force themselves to do things that maybe they don't want to do.
Okay.
So that's something I learned about an S.
That's interesting.
Because of stability. So maybe I don't want to be a leader in this situation, but it needs it. So I'm going to force myself to do it.
So you're a high S.
So yeah.
You must be a fairly high D though as well.
No, I scored like almost 0 in D and directing people. I don't like to tell people what to do, but I can force myself to step up if I need to.
Right. If somebody goes, hey, Rick, can you, I'll do it. Well, because you're asking me, but not because I want to.
Right.
It's interesting. I'm now 56. So up until about 50, I always thought I was an extrovert because, I like to meet with guys like you and have conversation. But it took me a long time to figure out I'm an introvert and I love being around people, but I also refuel, just on my own. Mm-hmm. Go to the gym, whatever. And so it's interesting to me. I don't know where I'm going with this here.
I've got some things to say about being an introvert. If
Tell me, man.
I didn't know we were going to go here, but I'm excited about this because I read a book. It's called The Quiet, Susan Cain. It's excellent. And scientific studies on the brain, how it works. Introversion is pretty much set before you're born.
Totally.
And it's not a environmental thing. But roughly half the people in the world are introverts, and half are extroverts. Yet our culture, for at least in the West, 100 years has been like how to make people more extroverted. How, it's in the church, it's in business. It's like if you're loud and put yourself out there, somehow you're more mature. You've evolved. Even with kids, you see if they're often alone playing by themselves, you think something's wrong with them.
Something wrong with them.
And so she talks about all this stuff, and like it almost gave me like, this is a superpower in a way. And even business, the people who are half the meeting and half the people in the meeting are quiet, so they don't call on them. But it's in their best interest as leaders you might have to pull them out, but that's half of your resources right there. So anyway, I'm happy to be an introvert. I mean, introverts have challenges, and so do extroverts. Extroverts need to listen better.
I was going to say, right there, extroverts tend to talk more than they listen. And introverts, because they're listening, people, sometimes they don't feel like they're being heard when they actually do speak. Yeah. And so you have to invite them.
And there's evidence too that, not to get too much off on this, but
I love this. This is great.
There's evidence too that introverts can be better salesmen in every career you can think of. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there thinking like, if I just get out there more, if I was just more bold, but be who you are. I mean, be who you are. I mean, you may have to learn to talk to people. You may have to get out of your comfort zone, but accept who you are. I mean, God made you that way. Yeah. It's like,
if God hardwired you for who you are and you're introverted, being authentic or trying to be an extrovert when you're an introvert is not really being authentic to who you are.
Right.
And I'm in the game of sales. I've been probably for 30 years. I used to sell tires with Mike Murphy way back in the day. I'm like, gosh, if I can sell a tire, I can sell anything. Like, that's pretty cool. That was my mindset. But I'm introverted, but I didn't know it. And I think, you can, I've noticed that in the world of sales, oftentimes the highest producers are introverts. They go off of systems. Instead of just going out like a shotgun, just shooting here and shooting there, they're more like a rifle. Like they're going to shoot a rifle, and so it has more impact.
True. And they tend to be more relational.
Yeah.
Like tend to be better listeners, and depending on what kind of sales it is, that can be key. So,
yeah. It's beautiful, man. I'm so glad I finally figured out I was an introvert because I thought, what is wrong with me? I want to go to this event, and I felt like I always had to go. I'm like, but I don't want to go, and I didn't recognize, I'm an introvert. Now that I know I'm more introverted, I can choose not to go and be okay with it, or go, you know what? I need to go and be outside my comfort zone.
I like it. I like it.
And my wife and I are both introverts, so I tend to drag her to things that's like, do you really want to go to this, or are we just trying to appease somebody? I'm like, all right, I think I'm just trying to appease somebody because that's how I operate too. So, still learning. So let's talk about, we're going to wrap up this podcast here in about 10 minutes or so, but I love that God's worked on you. And I think you said over coffee that you don't feel maybe equipped to lead the Bible study or men's group, but the pastors came to you and said, "Hey, Rick, you want to lead this Bible study?" And then all of a sudden, I don't know this, but now I'm seeing you guys at Starbucks, you and Mike and a few other guys praying, and I think that's really cool. Talk about how God's stretching you maybe in this area of leadership.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, not to spend too much time, but it's one of the things I was kind of there, not really like clear, but what I'm doing now is kind of what I was like wanting to do. And I was sensing there was more when I was thinking of quitting.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's more that God wants to do, so now I see it. So we started going to Free Church. It used to be Fellowship Church. It's South Salem. And met the pastor and started talking to him, really enjoy it there. And, again, I'm an introvert. We're just on the heels of COVID. Actually, COVID's still kind of in people's minds and a thing. And church is kind of, just got isolated and internalized, and people weren't meeting. And especially in Salem, it was even worse than other places.
Right.
He says, hey, we really need to start out small groups. Would you do that? And like I said, I wouldn't like volunteer for that, but it's like, okay, this is a challenge from God. Okay, I'll do it.
It's a challenge from God.
I'll do it. So here's an introvert in a city I don't know anybody, post-COVID, in charge of small groups. Yeah, why not? So
why not?
And some of them stuck. We got a few that stuck. The Tuesday morning men's group stuck, and that's been going on.
Yeah.
There's another one too, but so that was neat. And then shortly after, like during the following year, he asked if you would be the growth director. And so I'm the growth director at Free Church. So that's like helping come up with curriculum, doing the, we have some discipleship classes and different things. So
this is so cool, man.
Yeah. So it's like, and I think of these things as like, I don't always feel equipped, but I've also learned that, if God is there before you, if there's an opportunity and he calls me and someone says, "Hey, I'd like you to do this," especially when somebody like a pastor or something asks me to do that, I kind of trust that God is, in that. Like, okay, I'll try it. So
I love, I'm going to read this here in just a sec here. I think of Mike Murphy. I've known Mike for 30 years. I knew him when he was trying out for a store over in Bend. I worked in Bend, and Mike was going to become the assistant manager over there. And so I met Mike 30 years ago, and then seeing him full circle, I left Les Schwab after about 11 years and just decided, you know what? I didn't want to have to move around. That was the only challenge. I would say I love Les Schwab. I bleed Les Schwab. I mean, my dad worked for Les Schwab. But I think, now fast forward, Mike retired, a couple years ago. In a way, you guys are in similar situations where he's transitioning from something he did for 30 years.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm not going to tell your story, but I mean, this is really cool that God's put you guys together as grown men, both in a transitioning phase of your life. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you've unpacked that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it's like this here. So in Isaiah chapter 6, this is probably one of my favorite verses in the Bible, because you said, I don't feel I'm equipped. And the thing I always say that I've heard is, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so this is Isaiah's story. Isaiah chapter 6, verse, I guess 5. And then so Isaiah says, "Woe is me, for I am ruined, because I am a man of unclean lips." He knows who he is. "And I live among people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." So he's now in the Holy of Holies. You see these angels flying around, right?
Yeah.
"And then one of the seraphim flew to me with a burning coal in his hand, which he had taken from the altar with tongs. He touched my mouth with it and said, 'Behold, this has touched your lips. And your iniquity is taken away, and your sin is forgiven.'" Okay, that's pretty cool, right? So Isaiah is recognizing, he knows he's not equipped, but God's calling him to be equipped. And then here's Isaiah's commission. "Then I heard the voice of the Lord." Pay attention here, right? "Saying, 'Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? That's God speaking. Who will go for us? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Yeah. Then Isaiah says, here I am, send me. He said, go and tell his people. So I love that Isaiah's like, you know what? I was a man of unclean lips, but now I'm forgiven. Lord, send me. I'll go. And that's kind of what I hear you saying, Rick. You're willing to do what God's called you to do. Is it easy? I don't think so. Do we fight against it sometimes?
Yeah.
Of course. But
And
we're human.
When I read in the Bible, everybody who was in the presence of God to some degree, there was a sense of, who am I? I'm unworthy. And so that's not bad. That's just the truth.
That's human.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
And, but then to continue it like he did, I love that story. It's like, I'm going to be with you. Go with me,
Yeah.
So.
Send me, Lord. I mean,
yeah.
Am I scared? Yeah. I don't know where you're going to send me. I mean, think if you were Paul and you've been beaten 40 lashes minus one. Yeah. You've been left for dead.
Yeah.
Not just once, but many times.
Yeah.
And he still keeps coming back in. I was meeting with a buddy of mine this morning and just see God working in his life. And it was cool meeting the same Starbucks, right? We meet every Tuesday. We didn't meet this Tuesday, so we met this morning. Because, really the lesson God is teaching me is don't quit. Just keep getting up and moving forward. God has a plan for your life. If you're still alive and you're still breathing, God's not done with you yet.
Yeah.
So he still has work for you.
Yeah, I would say God has taught me in the last several years more about what it means to live by faith than up to that point. And it's an unknown road, and it's just you gotta be. We could go on and on, but I mean, like when he called Abraham, said, "Go to this place." He didn't know where he was going. That's all he knew. God said, "Go."
Go.
And
well, that's what faith is. Faith isn't going, gee, I know where I'm going. I guess I'll go because God wants me to go. No. God says, go to this corner, wait for me, pray, have faith. Oh, take a left. Okay.
Yep.
And trusting in him.
Yeah.
As we wrap up the podcast, what I want to know, Rick, is how does this translate in the way you love your wife and the way you lead her? Because our wives need a leader, right? Not a dictator.
Yes.
But a guy who loves, his wife as Christ loves us, gave himself up for her. We know the verse.
Yeah.
But how do we, having knowledge and not applying, God's called us to apply what it is we know. How do you do that?
Well, like I said, as far as a provider, she's doing more. But as a leader, she sees me more because I'm home. So she
likes that.
She sees how I live my life. She sees how I use my time. She sees, the ministries I'm involved with. She sees the people I meet with. So, I have more time on my hands than she does too, but she sees that. Also, just I think being more present. It's interesting. I wasn't sure how to answer that, but I believe I'm a better leader because I'm there.
Yeah.
We communicate a lot more. She's a very independent person, and that hasn't changed. But leadership takes time too, time to discuss things, to work things out, to plan, so. And we do that.
Yeah.
We plan, we decide, how we're going to give, how we're going to do the kids, when we're going to have the grandson over. I think more my presence and my example is kind of how I think I'm leading. You can tell I'm not the kind of, I'm not the D personality. I'm not, this is what I want to do, But and that looks different for a lot of marriages. What leadership looks like. There's not one model. That I believe that.
Right.
So,
well, I think it's good. I mean, honestly, I've been married for 33 years, and marriage is a learning curve. It's very humbling, right? God's called two different people, male and female, to come together, and that's a challenge. And so, as I learn more about my own personality. And I've had my wife take the DISC profile, and we've done different personality profiles, so I can really understand who she really is. Or read the 5 Love Languages. You ever read that book? It's a great book. I love that you're willing to keep learning who you are and who your wife is and how God's wired you both, and that you respect that. I think respect is a big one. So one thing you talked about is you were on a different podcast, and one of the comments that the guy says is, "Don't take yourself so seriously."
Yes.
So now, in having fun with your wife and doing fun things, what do you guys do for fun that you don't take yourself? Because you're an engineer, man. You're pretty serious.
Yeah.
How do you have fun and go, you know what? Let's just go have some fun.
Oh, we like to. Excuse me. I actually built. We don't have to get into it. I built an adventure van. This was one of the projects I did for fun a couple of years ago. And so we'll just take that thing and we'll get in it and we'll go up to some river somewhere and just be out in nature and take the dog and go hiking. So we did that last week at the McKinsey River. We had a lot of fun. Yeah. So
it's what do you call that? It's not camping because you're not in a tent, but I mean,
it's kind of glamping. Well, it's not really glamping because we're not connected to any facilities, but we got all the solar and the heat and
as an engineer, you know all the systems you want there.
Oh yeah. So we do that. We spend a lot of time together. We'll play cards. The neighbors got a social group that we go to. She teaches yoga and sometimes I'll do that. I mean. Yeah, we just enjoy being with each other. I think because so many years
you were gone.
You were gone. I think we just enjoy being with each other. Yeah.
It sounds like you're really
we're silly with each other, so we have fun with each other.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that you're just intentional. Yeah. Like, hey, intentionally, we're going. We're going to take the van. Yeah. And we're going out. We're getting away from stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know with my wife, we love travel too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love being away with my wife because when I'm here in Salem, work's on my mind. I have pressures, self-inflicted, by the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody's forced me to do anything. I tend to create my own pressures, but being away with my wife on vacation or wherever is really the highlights of our life because we get to really unpack what we want life to look like. And one of the things I do with my wife is, the Bible verse that says, without vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. And really creating vision for my wife and I, because I haven't always done good at that. And right. I always say, hey, gosh, in 10 years, what's our life look like? Yes, we're going to be praying about it. Mm-hmm. Yes, God's a part of that. But you got to have a roadmap, right? And so it's exciting to actually take yourself out 10 years and go, what would life look like if? Mm-hmm. And just talk about it. So we just have a great conversation, probably a lot like you guys do.
And we have those conversations. It's just time is the big thing for me. Like, especially for men, it takes more time for men to kind of connect, I think, than women can kind of get to it right away. So just the fact that we have time together, sometimes we can't cold talk about a subject, but if we're out doing stuff and, playing and out in the woods, hey, what do you thought about this lately? It's just time for that conversation to develop. Yeah. So we do a lot of that. I believe we do pretty good. Yeah. So,
well, brother, we're gonna wrap up. Okay. But if somebody wants to connect with you on, on anything on the back of this card, you do a lot of stuff, but really, home inspections, stuff like that. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
I don't mind giving my number out. So.
Give your number.
So do you have 100,000 followers?
I don't think we have quite 100,000.
Okay.
We're a little less than that. But give your number.
Sure. 503-869-0132.
And I'll actually put this in the show notes along with your email. And if somebody wanted to learn how to lose weight, I bet you'd probably meet with them and go, hey, here's what I do. What would you say to that?
Yeah. And both my wife and I are trained nutrition counselors too. We got it. I forgot to put it on there. We got out of there. Neither one of us do it now because we got other stuff going on, but we've done that. So we have some experience in that area. So yeah.
You're a guy that's versed in a lot of different things. So should give you lots of opportunity to meet with people and just talk. So
yeah. Well, this has been fun.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, Rick. Appreciate having you on. And hey, we appreciate you guys listening every week. I hope and pray that you get something out of these messages. And I know this message will always affect somebody. I don't know if it's 1 or 1,000. I don't know. God knows. And if you ever want to be on the podcast, if you know, or maybe you know somebody who wants to be on the podcast, maybe they have a great story to share, we would love to talk with you and see if it's something you want to do. And Rick, thank you for being here this week.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, and we'll see you around. We'll probably be grabbing coffee again, I'm pretty sure.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.